Welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Shirley Min and Mark Eichman. The jobless rate is dropping and a new tool is connecting people to jobs via social media. It appears Twitter is the new help wanted ad. We'll explore that this week on First.
It's been 20 years since Delaware first started monitoring the health and well-being of our children. Kids Count's Janice Barlow discusses the latest report on how children are doing this week.
The other health question we asked this week is vaping safe? Delaware is at the center of the politics surrounding e-cigarettes. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Have ever thought Twitter will be a social media site used as a place where employers and employees meet online? Well, that's certainly the case today. And in this week's First Look, I'll explain how it's working for Delaware. The city of Wilmington is encouraging a non-traditional approach to job searching. How much time do you spend online? Many would say probably too much time. It's a different story when you're job hunting. You always want to be the first to know when a job opens. Wilmington Councilman Darius Brown recognizes that.
I think we're very hyper connected now, and so with that, more and more companies are understanding the importance of social recruiting.
Social recruiting is exactly what Wilmington.tweetmyjobs.com is all about. The site encourages people to create a profile and be notified via Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, even by text message. Imagine that.
I think it's awesome. It's a great way to get the information. You know, you're on social media most of the time anyway. I get tweets on my phone, Facebook on my phone, so why shouldn't you tweet a job also?
The Greater Wilmington Convention and Visitors Bureau signed up and immediately started posting jobs on social media. It was something Sarah Willoughby never imagined doing in her career.
Not in a million years. I mean, to me, it was a huge surprise to even see this opportunity and just a great way of finding new people that would maybe never find me. So it's great.
Willoughby posted a total of 3 jobs.
Well, I had 3 positions available, and I had 2 part-time and 1 full-time. And I was really pleased. We had 3 applicants, and I hired one.
And just like that, Talia Nolan became connected to the Visitors Bureau. She was almost at the end of her rope after hearing next to nothing from potential employers.
I had my resume out there for about 2.5 months and searching on all the other job boards, and nothing was coming back. And then I happened to come across the tweet for this job, and I thought, well, let's find out more about it.
Eventually, Talia was hired at the Visitors Bureau. Now she's working part-time hours here. However, Talia said it wouldn't be possible if she didn't see the tweet or click on this website.
I think it's easy. There's a lot of people here in Delaware who are looking for jobs, and they're running into the same things that I'm running into constantly. You know, the job boards, nobody responding. So this would actually probably be a better venue for them because, like I said, those jobs seem real. People want employees, and the employees need jobs, so why not?
According to Councilman Brown, the city's goal is creating more working neighborhoods. There seems to be a skills gap in the city of Wilmington. Brown believes that's because many residents don't match up with the job opportunities here. But this website helps. Most importantly, it keeps people connected to the jobs that match their qualifications. Also, it's a win-win for the employer that signs up as well.
What we hear oftentimes from the employers is that there's a great cost with them marketing to find a qualified applicant.
Basically, the platform helps businesses reduce advertising costs too.
I'm constantly out tweeting and retweeting the job vacancies. I want it to be known to the Wilmington population, our Wilmington residents, but also we service the greater Newcastle County area with Wilmington.tweetmyjobs.com. And so it's a great opportunity for really northern Newcastle County to really look at how we can employ people.
In the past, the Visitors Bureau would use its members to spread the word about job vacancies. Now this office will be tweeting those openings.
I definitely will. Hopefully not anytime soon. I want my positions to not open up anymore right now. But if they do, definitely I would use it again.
As for Talia, she recommends everyone embrace the new trend.
Before social media became what it was, probably not. because we were still faxing resumes. But now, definitely, why not? I mean, we're all on social media, almost everybody.
According to Brown, there's been a great reduction in unemployment over the last 3 years in Wilmington, but there are still some challenges. People are recommended to check out the site, and businesses are encouraged to sign up. It's free and supported by the city of Wilmington.
It seems like such a simple idea, but like Talia Nolan said in your story, none of this would even be possible without smartphones. You know, how effective, are there numbers to show how effective this is?
Well, they don't have numbers of actual hires just yet, but several local businesses have signed up, including big names, AstraZeneca, AT&T, and Starbucks. When the site was launched, though, 3,000 companies signed up.
Wow. Where is the jobless rate sitting at in Wilmington now?
Well, new numbers should be out next week. Wilmington still has the highest numbers of unemployed people in the state. That's just above 6%, I'm sure you know. Remember, it was in double digits just a few years ago. Newcastle County has a jobless rate near the state average, under 5%, so people are finding jobs, surely, and hopefully this works out and it'll help more people.
Yeah, anything to get those numbers down more. Thank you so much, Nichelle. There is more to read on Delaware's employment situation when you visit our website, newsworks.org/Delaware.
Coming up on First, vaping is coming under fire by those who aren't convinced that it is a healthy alternative to cigarette smoking. And the Peephole provides a new photographic experience this week. We'll take you inside the world of Heather Seipel later on First. The group Kids Count came out with their annual assessment of the children of Delaware. I went to the University of Delaware this week to meet Janice Barlow for this first-person segment. First question, what's the headline for how our kids are doing in 2015?
Well, the big news this year is Kids Count in Delaware just turned 20. So we've celebrated our 20th year, and in doing this, we've taken a look back at what has happened in 20 years for our kids. And starting at 1995 and then looking at the most recent data possible, what we're seeing is that we've got a lot of very positive trends happening, but some things that we still have to be concerned about. So on the positive side, we're seeing a reduction in the teen birth rate. We're seeing fewer kids who are dropping out of school. We see a lower number of kids who are being locked up, who are being incarcerated, and we're seeing dramatically reduced lead poisoning numbers in our youngest kids. But then on the concerning side, children in poverty, the number there continues to increase, and that really affects so much of our other data, our other indicators, that we're very concerned about that, and that's where we need to still focus some work and attention.
I want to get into poverty a little bit, but to the idea of doing 20 years, kind of a 20-year snapshot of where the state's kids have gone, it really is. That's really the way you have to look at these things. It can't be a year-to-year thing. It's got to be long-term, because that's the way that the trends really play out.
Right, right. And especially in Delaware, we're talking small numbers, and so we might have a blip or an anomaly where one year the data might go up when really the trend line over time is down. So we really do have to look at trends, and that's very important.
And to poverty, that was a big issue that was highlighted in last year's report as well, and still an issue that affects so many other factors and other statistics in the book even.
It is, and what we're seeing in the 20-year time frame is that kids in poverty, the number actually began to go down a little bit in the early 2000s until the recession hit. And then what we've been seeing ever since the recession is the number of kids in poverty has continued to increase. As you said, last year we saw this as well. Even into this recovery, what we're seeing is that the job market, the jobs that are coming back aren't livable wage. And so what's happening is as parents re-enter the workforce, they're working in jobs that aren't necessarily supporting their families above the poverty level.
And I guess then the real concern, keeping with the 20-year anniversary theme, is that the kids who are going through poverty over the last several years since the recession and the downfall in 08-09 will have impacts in years going forward.
That's right.
Because of that?
That's right. So kids in poverty, we know that they obviously have less material goods than others, but poverty affects so many other things. It affects the child's health and their safety. And so, for instance, if a child has asthma and environmental conditions in an impoverished area, community aggravate that, then the child won't be in school. And if you're not present, you're not learning. It's you know, this cycle that happens. And so we have to address that for the kids today, so that we can make sure that kids are healthy, that they're learning, that they're going to be productive as they age.
One of the other things that over the past 20 years that was highlighted in the report is dropout rate, gone down almost in half over the last 20 years.
Yes, and it's actually at the lowest that it's been since we've been tracking it. So it's and there have been news about this. On the flip side of that, we're seeing our graduation rate increase, and so that's very, very positive information, that the more kids that we have graduating and ready for to go on to additional training or college, career ready, the more that they'll earn over their lifetime, and it will help with the next generation.
And that really can address the poverty numbers for kids who will be in the report in future years.
Exactly. This isn't a short-term problem that we have, so we can't look at short-term solutions. We need to have that long-term investment. We need to have strategies that will help whole families and whole families into the future. So investing in early childhood, early care and education is a proven strategy. Another is enhancing supports like the earned income tax credit and things that will support the whole family and help those kids over time.
Barlow says since the 90s, the economy and the jobs available for families has become the #1 factor that affects kids. We put up a link to the study on newsworks.org/Delaware.
While you're online, go to WHYY.org/first. It's where you can watch this show when you want. Past shows are there as well. If you have Comcast, you can look us up on demand. Don't forget to check us out and send us your feedback.
More than a decade ago, Delaware banned smoking to clear the air in bars, restaurants, and other public spaces. Now, some lawmakers say it's time to expand the state's clean indoor air law to include electronic cigarettes. Tanya English from the WHYY Health Desk and The Pulse has our story. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Shirley. So state law already protects bystanders from toxins in secondhand tobacco smoke, but it's less clear what's in all those clouds of vapor that come from an electronic cigarette.
Public health officials are just beginning to understand basic questions about these new devices that some people say have helped them give up smoking.
I made the switch because I hated waking up every morning completely dehydrated, coughing up mucus out of my. I hated coming home smelling like just horrible pack of cigarettes.
Chen Young still craves nicotine, but says his new habit is a lot healthier.
Safer.
You can find a vaping device to fit any personality, but an e-cigarette is basically a metal tube attached to a battery and a metal coil, and there's liquid inside.
There's 4 main ingredients: vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol, nicotine, and flavoring.
Take a puff, and heat turns the liquid into vapor. State Representative Deborah Heffernan is worried about those emissions, and she wants to protect Delawareans who don't vape.
There are toxic components, including nicotine, formaldehyde, and other chemicals that are not as clean air.
The director of Delaware's Division of Public Health, Carol Rattay, says if you're standing near someone using an electronic cigarette, you can absorb the nicotine from that secondhand vapor.
That's especially concerning for pregnant women, for babies, for children and adolescents.
Opponents gathered at Legislative Hall to speak with lawmakers and to stop the plan to forbid vaping in indoor public spaces.
All they have is hype and conjecture, listing off random chemicals without actually clarifying what levels are harmful.
Gregory Conley represents small businesses and leads the American Vaping Association.
We are extremely hopeful that the Delaware legislature will, at the very least, exempt vape shops from this ban.
Scott Newsborski is owner of Vape Escape in Newark. He says an indoor ban would hurt his business.
People want to try before they buy. And we have the younger crowd that wants to do something that's hip but doesn't have the risks and dangers associated with tobacco.
Salesman Chan Young says electronic cigarettes are so new that shoppers need hands-on education to pick the right product.
You turn this on, just press it 5 times. You're off at this point.
And it helps, he says, if customers can spend time at the tasting bar and vape inside the shop.
A lot of people, when they come in, it's really easier for them to stop smoking cigarettes if they find a flavor they really like.
The federal government is still deciding if it will step in and regulate electronic cigarettes. But in the meantime, cities like Philadelphia and states like Delaware are moving ahead with their own rules.
Tanya, is there any good evidence that e-cigarettes help people stop smoking tobacco cigarettes?
We hear those stories from vapors all the time. They say that it helps, but electronic cigarettes are not an approved stop smoking aid. The things that can help you then and that are approved are nicotine patches, nicotine gum, counseling, and a couple kinds of medication.
Okay, and you have to be 18 years old to buy electronic cigarettes in Delaware, but in your story we did see a lot of brightly colored, fruity flavored bottles of stuff at the vape shop.
Yeah,
are they targeting young people?
Vape shop owners say they're very vigilant about checking IDs and making sure that minors can't buy at the store. But I think that it's important to note that 14% of high school students in Delaware have tried vaping, and that makes officials wonder if electronic cigarettes could be kind of a gateway to a nicotine addiction for teens that have never even tried tobacco.
All right, thank you so much, Tanya. We should point out that the bill to ban e-cigarettes in indoor public spaces passed out of the Health Committee and will be considered by the full House when lawmakers return to session. We'll be following that part of the story at newsworks.org/Delaware. You can follow Tanya's work when you listen to The Pulse each week. It can be heard on WHYY-FM Fridays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 10. Tune into 90.9 or along the Delaware beaches at 90.3.
We haven't checked in with the State of Play team on First in a while, so let's introduce Stephanie Hansen from the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor. She's a former Newcastle County president. We also have on set Michael Stafford. He's an attorney. He's also a columnist, and he has been featured on MSNBC. So let's start off with defect numbers. First and foremost, they're out. Once again, revenues are down. But the latest unemployment numbers are at the lowest since before the recession. What does that mean for Delaware when it comes to viewing the economy?
Well, I think that it means that we're going to have to look at ways to raise revenues, through the General Assembly. And at this point, since we don't have, the Democrats no longer have the supermajority that they had, they're going to have to work with the Republicans and come up with some new ways to raise revenue. I think maybe the gas tax is something they talked about last session that might come back again. There's also a possibility of increasing the tax on cigarettes, which could be a great boon for the state as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Every conversation about taxation in Delaware always involves a discussion about taxes that are not progressive. Once again, with the defect number, we've got a $45 million hole. And a good bit of that is attributable to declining casino and lottery revenues. Casinos and lotteries are taxes that penalize the poor. Disproportionately, it's the poor, it's people in poverty, it's working class individuals who go and play in casinos, who play the lottery. So they're shadow taxes on some of our citizens who are least able to pay. Every one of these discussions is an opportunity to talk about progressive taxation. We have very wealthy individuals in Delaware who make a heck of a lot more than I do, who pay the same income tax rate. Let's have a discussion about that. Some people have a much greater ability to pay.
That's true.
So when you're somebody on a fixed income, or when you're an individual who is, who's got a temp job at Amazon, it's going to take a much larger share of your income. There's a remedy for that. We don't have a very progressive income tax structure here in Delaware. There's a lot of room up at the top of the spectrum for rate growth if we have the political will to do it.
Okay. Which I don't think we have.
No. Or the courage.
Just letting you know.
Nationally, within the United States, the death penalty is applied disproportionately in the states of the former Confederacy and border states. And so to me, it really can't be separated from discussions about the legacy of racism in this country, quite honestly. So I would be thrilled to see Delaware jettison that loaded history. Whether it happens or not, I think there's a good chance that it might. Okay. There's certainly a lot of political will behind it. There's a good moral and also a good economic case for it. I mean, the death penalty is a very expensive mechanism, usually more expensive than the alternative of life imprisonment.
I think it more likely than not will probably not pass. But I think it may get closer than it did before. I mean, Delaware is, despite the fact that we have mostly Democrats in the General Assembly, they're a fairly conservative bunch. And it's only going to be once a critical number of other states have actually gone down the road, will Delaware kind of bring up the end. I mean, we have, like the sponsor, Senator Peterson, is quite liberal, and she's going to push the envelope, as she does on many issues, which she should. Yeah. And, you know, it gets a little more traction every time. I guess the question is it going to have the traction it needs this time? I don't know.
Any room for any other social issues this time around, you think, for
decriminalization of pot?
Decriminalization.
Decriminalization. Not the legalization of pot, but perhaps decriminalization. Making it no longer a crime. It's still going to be illegal, but it will be a civil illegality as opposed to a criminal illegality. We are nowhere near legalization, but maybe decriminalization.
Okay. And the governor certainly made that clear that we will not, we're nowhere near the legalization of marijuana here in the state. Yeah. That's something that we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Markell's expressed that. I mean, look, to me, as somebody who was formerly, you know, very active in the Republican Party, the best evidence, Exhibit A, on the tombstone of the culture war is the fact, at least in Delaware, is the fact that we have nothing more to talk about with respect to social issues than legalizing marijuana, which on the hierarchy of claims to justice is pretty near the bottom, quite honestly. I don't see it happening now. The trend nationally does seem to be in that direction, and I think Delaware will ultimately follow along, but not this time.
Well, is it smart economics or good politics? What do you think?
It's purely politics. Economically, the states that have actually legalized it are seeing such a boon in revenue that they're now talking about actually giving back to the growers. So it is a boon for revenue. And here we are earlier talking about, you know, where we're going to find money. Exactly. You know, I don't know that we're ready to go there yet. Economically, it would certainly help. Politically, we're just not ready for that. The state isn't ready for that.
Okay. Well, it's always a good time when we have you guys here on set. Thanks so much for the good conversation. Thanks Stephanie Hansen and Michael Stafford for being here and a part of State of Play.
Heather Seipel has been taking pictures since she was old enough to hold a camera. Lately, Heather's been experimenting with a door peephole mounted to her camera lens. She points it towards nature, turning trees, flowers, and old buildings into fantastical, mythical-looking worlds. First experience went hiking with Heather to get a peek into that world.
My name is Heather Seipel. I am a third-generation photographer. My father and grandfather were both photographers. When I got my first camera, it was a little thing with a slide viewer on one side and just a viewfinder on the other, so I could look at the pictures of the animals inside, or I could look on the other side, and I never looked at the sides of the animals. I always looked through the viewfinder and just pretended to capture everything in front of me. Lately, I've been doing more where I'm trying to instill a sense of fantasy, especially when I go out and find some ruins. It reminds me of things that I've read as a story, fairy tales and things like that. What I call them are my orbs. I've taken a peephole for a door and mounted it into a lens cap. What I got was this circular, distorted, it looks almost three-dimensional. So I started doing landscapes with it. I'm like, ooh. And after that, I was just hooked. When I go out and do a landscape, I try to pick out one little detail here or there that really you'd otherwise walk over, like a flower on the ground or a piece of a leaf sitting on a rock or something like that and really focus on it. Or I'll try to infuse some kind of fantasy theme to it. Just exploring, and you get the sense of innocence and the sense of fantasy and wonder. I've got one where we were out at another park. We found this old plastic rocking horse. And I parked my daughter down in the windowsill with a rocking horse and I took a picture of her. And I looked at the negative later on, and there's this monstrous face in the plaster. It's like a goblin or something trying to get her. It's just really wild. It's got this fairy tale kind of feel to it. When you do black and white, it takes away that sense of instant reality, and it emphasizes the moods, the shadows, the shapes. I like going out and finding new places. I like going out and exploring old places and seeing how they've changed because the lighting has changed. I like watching the image come up in the developer. Slowly, this image just fades into view. It's still magical. I've been doing this for so many decades. I've been doing this since I was in elementary school, and it still doesn't get old. And I like watching people and seeing how they get absorbed in what they're looking at. It's just, the whole thing is just, it's magical. Well, nobody's ever accused me of doing anything the normal way. I like being able to use the medium as something other than face value. I really like being able to take my photographs and suggest stories to people that they can really think about and fill in the blanks, and kind of take my artwork as a place to take off in their own imaginations. I like people looking at things and going, wow, I never thought of it that way. I never saw it that way before.
In case you were wondering what far-off world we ventured to for our story, it was actually just First State National Monument, which is off of Beaver Valley Road near the Delaware and PA border. We did have a little fun with this story when we shot it. Heather took a picture of our videographer, Paul Parmalee, with a little otherworldly look. You can get more information on Heather's work on her website, sipleart.com.
Next week, we have an update on the Americans with Disability Act here in Delaware and what goes through a police officer's mind when they have to make split-second life and death decisions. Our Teach Me segment will explore that issue.
We'll have those stories and a conversation on Wilmington's violent situation with Councilwoman Hanifa Shabazz. That is first for this week. We thank you for watching. For Tanya English, Mark Eichman, and Shirley Min, I'm Nichelle Polston. Have a great week.